Okay, so when you were a kid, was there something or some things that you were completely forbidden to touch?
Yes.
What couldn't you touch?
We as kids were never allowed to touch the milk. If you were caught drinking milk, you were in the biggest trouble. It was my mom and aunt's coffee. They used it for cereal. And then, I don't know if you guys remember this dessert called bonbons. Do you remember them? They were like these little frozen ice cream nuggets.
Yeah, they had like chocolate on the outside and like ice cream on the middle and cake.
My mom and Ann went through a big bonbon run, and you were not allowed to touch those. If you were caught with a bonbon, you were in serious trouble.
Serious?
Big time.
Yeah, they mess around.
I was not allowed to touch the hairdryer growing up. I had used it I guess I was trying to play like doctor or something with stuffed animals, and I had a stuffed Pikachu, and I tried to use the hairdryer on it for some reason, and I burnt it so bad I almost lit it on fire.
Oh my god!
So my mom did not let me use that afterward. I was not allowed to touch that until I was like 16.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, probably made sense. Your parents were like, you can't touch that because if you did, you'd wind up hurting yourself or burning down the house, something like that.
Bonbons, Mom? I hurt myself.
Makes a lot of sense, but there are other stuff, too, that just didn't make sense. People were commenting on the KVJ Show Facebook page, things they weren't allowed to touch as a kid. Jessica said, the furniture in the living room. So how do you live in a house and you can't touch the furniture?
There's a lot of people that have a room in their house. At least growing up there was. And it was like a front room. And nobody was even allowed to go in it, much less sit on the furniture. I never understood that. We didn't have one of those rooms. That seemed kind of fancy.
Me and that kind of person are so different. We're different types of people.
I don't get it. Why would you have a whole room in your house and not use it?
And to me, that you're right. Every neighborhood has a house where they had furniture you were never allowed to even look at, and usually the parents were kind of annoying. If you look back,
they were. It goes hand in hand. Now this makes sense. Grandma had a lot of stuff. Stacy said, we could not touch Grandma's knickknacks, and Lady Doc Alvarado said, looking with your eyes, not your hands, was the golden rule at Abuela's house.
Yeah, you can't touch anything. Grandma has so much, like porcelain figurines. Did your grandma have a lot of that? My grandma had a ton of like porcelain bells and porcelain figurines and little crystal little sculptures.
And if you stared at them for longer than 10 seconds, they'd shatter. They were so fragile.
My grandma up in Pennsylvania had the same thing, and you could not touch them. They were worth money, and if you did, you were in trouble. Yeah,
Kristen said we weren't even allowed to touch the walls at my grandparents' home. We get in trouble.
Oh, wow.
Probably didn't want sticky, gooey kid hands mucking up because that was the one thing with wallpaper that was tough. I mean, it's paper on your wall, so when you get dirt on that, it's tougher to get off, and sometimes it's in there, and then that wallpaper's done.
So weird, because that's such a different style of grandparents than like the kind that want to hug you and feed you apple pie. Totally two different sets of parents.
Yeah. Bettina said, thing we couldn't touch as a kid, the thermostat. We were born and raised in northern Ontario, and we couldn't turn the heat on until we could see our breath. Gosh, can you imagine that?
That's brutal.
That is tough. Okay, fire it on. Jackson said, my dad had an autographed Dan Marino football in the house. We snuck it out of the house one time. We're playing with it, and the dog popped it.
Oh.
That's kind of like the Sandlot.
Oh, man.
That's when you just pack up and leave.
Yeah, that's bad. Jessica said, as a kid, we weren't allowed to touch the dogs. I have no idea why, but I was not allowed at all to pet the dog.
Oh.
Was the dog in the house?
I think so. Don't pet the dog. I don't know why. Maybe
That's weird.
Maybe the dog was mean.
Maybe as a kid. I know sometimes kids, they don't know, and they'll kind of, instead of petting, they'll kind of ball up their fists and they'll grab and they hurt dogs.
For sure.
But I mean, when you get to a point where you realize you're not allowed to pet the dog, though, I think you'd be like, okay, I understand how to pet a dog without hurting it.
Huh.
Michelle said, yes, the thing we weren't allowed to touch as a kid, the little package of small sheets of paper. They're always kept on top of the high china cabinet. Little sheets of paper. Why would they keep little sheets of paper? That's
little
weird.
Tiny, super thin sheets of paper?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't really even draw them or anything.
Huh.
They would break apart. That's weird. I don't know why you'd have that. Amanda said, yeah, we were not allowed for some reason to touch my dad's unmarked VHS tapes.
We weren't allowed to go near this certain drawer, and as soon as my parents left the house, what drawer did I go near?
Oh, yeah.
It was a drawer filled with Dad's Playboys.
The whole thing with the VHS thing, though, if the dad makes a big deal about not going
What's
to
the first
see
thing
it,
you want to do?
of course I want to go see what's on that VHS tape.
It's the same thing with all these rules where you tell the kids not to touch it. The first thing you want to do is go touch it. And then if you're ever left unsupervised for longer than 10 minutes, that's what you're going to go to.
That's why if you have kids, you need to have a safe and put the Playboys in there. Put the small, tiny pieces of paper in there.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got something like a Playboy or your VHS tapes in your top drawer, you're doing it wrong, parents.
You're doing it wrong.
They should not be going through your drawer, but they are.
Absolutely.
It's a different era now where, maybe it's probably sharing technology with your kids that they're going to find stuff.
Yeah, there's going to be no VHSs in anyone's drawer right now.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. It's going to be about that one file Dad had on his computer. And Brad said the thing I wasn't allowed to touch as a kid, the couch in the, quote, forbidden room. Brad, they're doing you a favor.
Is that the smush room, Brad?
Oh, man. Anything else that you had? What is it you couldn't touch? A couple other people were texting in. Yeah, the thermostat. Still can't touch it in their house, and I'm 26.
There's a lot of people saying they were never allowed in their parents' room. Were you guys even allowed in there, or is that just forbidden completely?
I think they probably had different rules for stuff.
But were you even allowed to go in your parents' room growing up?
You had to knock.
Yeah, I didn't really have any restrictions when I was a kid. I don't think there's anything that they had said, don't touch. Now I kind of wish, looking back on it, they had a few rules. Probably been a good thing. We got a text here that says, we weren't allowed to touch Mommy's massager next to her bed.
Oh, you don't want to touch a kid.
Mom, what are you leaving it? You can't put it away?
Oh.
How do you leave that out?
We weren't allowed to go into my dad's shed or touch the door to go in there. And the weird thing, it always smelled like skunks.
Oh, yeah, we know what you're doing, Dad.
Dad's skunk shed.
Dad had a weed shed?
Dad just needs to get away for a little bit, man.
Dad, go out there. You can't come back and touch the door to the skunk shed.
That was the original man cave. Back in the day, Dad's shed.
Dad just needs to escape a little bit.
Yes.
You kids are driving me nuts.
A lot of food things, the Diet Pepsi, things like that you couldn't have. You got the cheap knockoff Kool-Aid instead. So all the things that you could not touch that were off limits, you can let us know. Somebody else said the weird thing was we had bathroom towels and we were never allowed to use them.
My mom was weird about that too.
Yeah, they're towels, they're guest towels.
But it was just so weird. That was like the one thing that was organized was the towels. Everything else was a mess. Don't touch the towels.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No.